Today we're talking about shame, and more importantly, just doing a exercise to help release sort of those lingering bits of shame. Um, I just want you to remember that if you have a deep shame over something that you are not responsible for, that you are not able to work through yourself, I really recommend to you that you find a professional to help you deal with that. I know for me, sexual assault was a big one, and it took me a long time to work my way through that and the shame. A lot of that has to do with society and those secrets that we keep. And when we keep secrets, that's how the shame is keeps us or keeps control over us, right? So I just want to remind you of that. So this exercise is we're going to be jotting down something that we may feel shame about or just our thoughts about shame. And then we're going to cover that up, not in secrecy, cover it up, but as in getting rid of it. We don't need it anymore. And we're going to put beauty on top of it or things that we love on top of that to give us, while we're doing that page, it's allowing us to process through that lingering bits of shame that we may have. So this is just an exercise to help that you may or may not need professional help with as well, if this is just an extra exercise for you. But it's just a great thing to do. In my morning comm class this morning, we were talking about shame and the differences in gender. And I said, is it just women that are made to feel shameful over so many things, like how we dress and how we behave and how we clean the house or how we raise our kids? And the discussion, we decided that it wasn't gender-based. It was just different for each gender. So everybody has, things they're made to feel ashamed about. Men, it may be crying or enjoying baking or, any of those things that are considered effeminate. They, it's not mainstream acceptable. It's becoming more acceptable, right? So anyways, I'll switch cameras and we'll get started on the exercise. All right.
So today we're looking at shame. And it's something that, is usually hidden away and we don't want to look at. And this can be just a simple exercise to help us uncover, especially if the shame doesn't belong to us. Today in my morning comm class, this week, we've been talking about shame as well. And it's been really difficult because a lot of the shame is not our own. It doesn't belong to us, right? So that makes it really difficult. The things that we're ashamed to be women, having our periods or wearing our clothes too tight or whatever we're shamed for. Or maybe we've been sexually assaulted and it's a big secret and we're not allowed to tell anyone. Our family knows, but, don't say anything because we don't need other people to know. That sort of thing. So shame can be really tricky. But it's in everything we do. Even, men, don't cry and, you're tougher than that and that sort of thing. Don't be sensitive. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a blank page in our art journal. And I always use my art journal for journaling as well, but we're going to take a blank page and we're going to write about that shame. Whatever the shame is. Maybe it's, your body size and how you were made to feel horrible about it or still are. Or maybe it's about, a hidden secret in your family. Or maybe it's, just being a woman and finding that difficult, because we're supposedly the weaker sex and all of those things that go with it and how we're treated. So whatever aspect of shame comes up for you. So I'm going to use a Tombow. I really like Tombows for my art journal, and I do my journaling with them every morning because I can wash them away. So it's a water soluble, but I've also used these ones, the Studio ones. I think those are the ones from the dollar store. I've used Crayola markers. They're washable as well. So any of those that you can wash away, but you don't have to because we're going to cover this up. This is just my preference. So I'm going to use the Tombows and I'm just going to jot down some things that have been shameful or have made me feel ashamed in my life, even if I'm still not feeling it per se. And you'll notice that when I art journal, or when I journal, I don't worry about the spelling. I don't worry about whether you can read it, because I'm going to wash it away, and I tend to blend all my words together. So I'm not worried about coming back to read it. I'm just releasing it all. I'm just releasing it. So I just did a basic, I didn't delve too much into one incident for me because I've dealt with a lot of it, but I just looked at shame overall and how we're meant to feel shame. But you can definitely delve into something that has brought you a lot of shame, or you've been made to feel a lot of shame. I went into some stuff about sexual assaults and how women are treated, and I did have an incident back when I was younger where I took my boss to court for sexual assault, and it was a horrible experience. I understand why people don't do it. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I think you should, but it was a horrible experience because I was made to feel like I was ruining his life, and, you know, things like that. So shame is very pervasive in our lives, and so this allows us to release that. And now I'm going to pick my favorite color and either paint or color over that. I'm going to actually use some paint because I've got some right here. And I'm just going to cover this up. I think I'm going to use some pink too. Okay, so you can use paint, you can use markers, you can use, I could just use water, because see, this is what I mean with my Tombows. I can just wash it away like that, right? I can just come in here and wash that away. And I'm going to get in here and add some paint on here and cover this all up. And allow yourself to feel your emotions, right? Allow yourself to feel them and not feel guilty or like it's your fault for having emotions. Emotions are a part of being human, and too often we try and hide our emotions or shove our emotions down. And if we can just allow ourselves to feel our emotions, we actually move through them much quicker and do way less damage to our own selves. I know we're taught to hide our emotions, but if we allow ourselves to feel them, we'll be all around happier. Trust me. Good or bad emotions. So I'm just going to let this dry before I go on. Okay, so now I've covered that up. And if you want, you can put your paint or your colors on so that you can't see the writing at all. I always like the writing showing through. I just feel like it adds something, but that's just me. But then now we're going to do something, whatever makes us happy on top. So you can draw, you can collage, you can like cut up papers, you can put photographs, things that make you happy. So it's not that we're covering up the shame. We've released the shame onto the page, and now we're doing something to help us feel better. So maybe you want to reflect on, you might want to do more writing. You might want to do why that shame doesn't belong to you, or you may want to do, some writing on how you're free from it. I actually like to do images. So I'm going to use some acrylic ink, and I'm just going to draw some pictures and things that make me happy. So again, we're not covering up the shame, right? Because we don't want to hide it. We don't want to hide the shame. It's about bringing shame out into the open. But we've released it, and now we need to make ourselves feel better and make ourselves feel that value. So I am just going to grab my pen. Okay. So this is one of my new favorite things is to use acrylic ink with a fountain pen. I'm just going to put some on there. What I like about the acrylic ink, the fountain pen, is the meditative process of it. You could use a paint marker, you could do all sorts of other things. You can, like I said, you can collage. You're going to do what makes you feel good. I like the fountain pen and ink because it's almost meditative, right? It makes me sort of take a moment go a little bit slower and just reflect on what I've written, how I've been made to feel, all of those things. In my morning calm class this morning, like I said, we were doing shame this week as well. And so we were talking about, I said, is it more prevalent in women, or is it just different? And the consensus was that it's just different. Our society is very much about shame, right? It's very much about, shame is a really good control tactic. That's how predators get away with what they do, because they shame their victims into not saying anything, right? But men, it's shameful to cry, you're weak, don't show emotion. And a lot of that stems from, our history and from, but also it goes right back to the hunter-gatherer, and the men did the hunting, and you needed to be strong so you couldn't show weakness, and it's just carried forward continuously. So we need to let that go. We need to especially if the shame is not ours, right? We definitely need to let that go. So I'm just basically going through a meditative process while I fill in my page with things that make me happy. one of those things that can be really confusing. You know, shame is about, and shame and guilt are two different things, right? So guilt is about, you know, what have I done? And shame is more about who I am. So, and that's why other people use shame to control who you are and how you behave. Okay, so I've just added some different symbols and things that I like, some sayings. I'm strong, remember kindness, love, I am perfectly me, different things on there. And I may want to add something to it. Just thinking that I kind of really like this paper. I might want to add some pieces of it. So it might end up being more than I thought, right? So yeah, I think I'm going to do that. So I'm going to add these scrap paper pieces with matte medium. So maybe it'll end up being more of a collage than I thought. It just came to me, it just talked to me. You don't always get to decide when you're art journaling. But it's really not about the finished product. And I know you've heard me say this so many times. It's about the process, right? So it's that meditative state that we get into. It's when we release things, emotions can be really hard. And so, like I said, we're not covering up the shame, because usually shame has nothing to do with us. And so we need to release it. But then the creative part on top of it is that release, and then finding time for ourselves, right? So it's that meditative time we spend with ourselves and allowing ourselves the time to process, being kind to ourselves. Now, if you're having a really hard time letting go of shame, especially for a trauma, you know, maybe sexual assault or something like that, I definitely recommend seeing a therapist, talking to a professional, because it's really important to have an understanding of that that's not you, right? That's not your shame to carry, and being able to let that go, and a professional can definitely help you with that. Okay, I like that. I wonder what else I want to do now. I have a few other papers here. I think I might add some. I love collaging scrapbook paper. Like, it's just one of those things that makes me so happy. So I'm gonna keep adding some more, I think, because this is my time for me. I'm just going to let that dry a little bit. All right, I'm really feeling called to add some more color to it. I'm going to use the Neocolor water solubles. They're really great for, because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some color along some. I'm just sort of putting a sprinkle of color on, and then what I'm going to do, I'll show you. I'm going to bring some water in because they're water soluble, and we'll mix that up a little bit. All right, I'm going to start with my lighter colors. Just I have no rhyme or reason for it. I'm just felt like it needed a little bit of color. Depending on how much water you add with these will determine sort of how much color. And I'm using quite a stiff brush, so that pushes it around a bit more. Just brought a little bit more into it. And I feel like it's getting there, but I think I'm going to add a little bit of gesso. And gesso is it's a white acrylic, but it's quite matte in its look. It's a little bit different than paint. It covers a little differently, but what I'm going to do, I have a used up Starbucks card here. I'm going to just throw some on there, and I'm going to scrape it on. Just in a few places. Oh, that might be a lot for right there. I might want to move that around. So the thicker you put on gesso, the more coverage it has. But it does some really kind of neat effects. I really like scraping on gesso because it can get caught, even scraping on paint, because it can get caught in crevices and things like that, which I like. you kind of just keep playing until it feels kind of done for you, right? I think I'm really kind of liking this now. I'm going to dry it a little bit more. Okay, so I actually took my heat gun to this, and I don't know if you can see, but there's areas where the gesso was a little bit thicker, and I held my heat gun over it and it started to bubble up, and now it's got some texture. So now I'm thinking I want to put something over top to sort of catch that texture. So let's see what we have here that we could, actually I might use this ink, this Sumi ink. I really like it. I don't know how well it'll dry brush, but we're gonna try it. So by dry brush, we take a dry brush, literally, we dip into our paint or ink, and then we're gonna wipe a fair bit off on a paper towel, or I always keep my paper towels. And then I'm going to, so this, actually this brush has a fair bit of texture on its own, so it's not really picking up on the raised bits, but I kind of like it anyways. This is one of the great things about art journaling. To me, it is really about that processing time. You can definitely be working on different techniques and trying different things. I do that as well. But art journaling allows that processing, right? So we wrote about shame, and then we covered it up with something we loved, and then we're just taking that time to be kind to ourselves and to really look into our own heart, right? And spending some time with our own self. Now I'd like to put, I think I want to put something like words on top of this, and I'm always really unhappy with my writing. I went to a private school for elementary, and we learned what we wrote was much more important than how we wrote it, and I've never liked my writing because of that. So I think I'm going to print something to put on there, so I'll just be a moment. Okay, now I've printed out the words "I am strong" because those were the first words that came to me when I was starting to decorate my page. So I'm going to actually, I really like torn paper, so I'm going to tear these words out. And it's up to you how much paper you tear. I mean, you can cut them, you can write them. If you're okay with your writing, I mean, this seems simple, right? But I'm not okay with my writing. All right, so I'm going to use some more matte medium and put these on top. Oh, forgetting that ink, until it's dry, it does not, it takes a while for it to dry permanent. So I'm just gonna clean my brush off, because that ink gets on everything. So I'll just push that down. Oop. It's a little more black than I want. I don't mind a little bit, but so I think I might just frame it with that black because it's already going to do its thing. Okay. That's the other thing. Art journaling can be super messy. Oh, it's not too bad right now, but sometimes I am covered. All right. This is my little matte medium container. It's just a little takeout, and I use it almost every day, so it doesn't dry out too quickly. You wouldn't want to leave it in something like this if you were using it less, but something that has a tight lid. I just like this because I use it every day, and then I've got a small amount. Okay, I'm gonna let this dry. All right. So now, I don't mind the black, but I think it's just a bit much. So I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to pick up. I often like to frame my words. I'm going to do that. Let me just throw a little bit of this other orangey yellow in there too. So those water-soluble crayons are really great because they work a lot like watercolors, but you get to color with crayons. I'll let this blend a little more in here. There we go. Yeah, I like that better. I'm feeling like that might be done. I feel like I've had time to process through my shame. Like I said, I've done a lot around shame already from my past. If you have lingering thoughts of shame that are difficult for you to process and you're still feeling the shame within, and a practice like this is not enough, I highly recommend professional help to get through that, because shame is not yours to carry, right? It's one of those useless emotions and it really can do a lot of damage to us. But if you have things that you're at the tail end of, or you just need an extra practice, or you just need to be reminded, something like this is really great for that. So write out those shameful feelings and thoughts, and then cover it up with beauty and strength and things that make you happy, right? So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you'll share your page if you do one. I would love to hear from you. And I will switch back the camera now.
Okay, so we have finished that exercise, and I hope you, I don't want to say enjoyed it, but that you got something from it. And you'll give yourself that time to heal and meditate, and just that creativity allows us to process, right? And so I'm constantly saying that it's about the process. It's not about the finished product. Use colors that you like, symbols that you like, papers that you like, whatever you want to use that makes you feel good inside. And then just give yourself that time. So it's not so much, again, about that finished product. If you end up with a great page, great. But, if not, you can keep working on it, or you can just let it be. But it's about allowing yourself that time to do some processing. Okay. So I will see you again next week, and have an amazingly creative day. Bye for now.
Do you know about the courses and programs that we offer at Creative View? Meditation and journaling in our Morning Calm program. Step into Your Authentic Self is a program to help you heal from past traumas and start believing in yourself so you can be your healthiest, happiest you. We even have a Healing with Creativity monthly membership where you get healing projects twice a month, plus so much more. Keep watch, as we're always adding more classes and programs. Plus, we offer free challenges, access to summits and retreats, as we love sharing. Click below to see what we have happening now.